Good evening, my friends. This is the Grimflare. Hope everybody out there is doing really well tonight, and we're coming to you with a really quick video today, as promised, breaking down the first 100 matchups I've played since Modern Horizons has come out. We're going to look at the win and loss data based on matchup, and it's going to be of limited use right now because Modern is so incredibly diverse, right, that even with 100 matches under the belt, we don't necessarily have big data points on more than a small handful of matchups. But my hope with these videos is kind of threefold. Number one, that the data sets will become more relevant over time as more and more matchups get played, as the specific data sets for specific matchups gets bigger and bigger. Number two, it will show us perhaps where the weak points in our archetype lie, maybe give us some new insights into that. Whether it be for the archetype in general or for my specific play or deck building or maybe both. And number three, that it can generate some useful discussion in the comment section. So let's say I highlight a certain matchup. Somebody out there has an experience that varies wildly and they decide to share that with us, and then we can all talk about it, learn something, get better. So that's why I'm bringing you this data. As said, this is going to be the first 100 matches. Let's get right into it. Okay, so at least to start this off, I'm using this website, nifty little website I found searching what people do about this data collation malarkey. It's called magicprotools.com. Very easy to use. I have no affiliation with the guy who runs it. I've never even, spoken to him, but seems like a pretty nice thing to me. The only issue with it, and this is as much an issue of my own record keeping as anything else, is that they've got this games column here, and I actually, when I was recording the results of these first 100 matches, I didn't record games won and lost. I didn't record whether it was a 2-1 or a 2-0. I just recorded pure win and loss. So this games column is just pure clutter right here. Try to ignore that if you can. And I don't know how useful that data is anyway. I'm basically just concerned with, can we win the match or not, right? Everything else is just kind of noise. So that's my take. Your mileage may vary, but in any case, we're here in almost alphabetical order with Jund at the top. I don't know what that's about, but as said, we've only, quote-unquote, only played 100 matches. Small sample sizes for most of these. We're going to touch on a couple big ones, though. A couple ones with a high amount of data and or things that might be outliers. And the first one is this Eldrazi-Tron matchup, and we can talk about Eldrazi Stompy while we're here. I am a combined 2-6 against these Eldrazi decks, and just a brief note on how I'm categorizing matchups here going forward. So Eldrazi Stompy, this incorporates the colorless Eldrazi like Serum Powder deck. It incorporates that red-green Eldrazi deck, even though I haven't seen that lately, like the 3-color red-green colorless Eldrazi deck that was in vogue a little while ago. If I run into that, I'm just going to throw it under Eldrazi Stompy because you can't break these down too specifically, in my opinion. So in any case, Eldrazi Tron is definitely a bad matchup for us. Eldrazi Stompy, not great either. Again, a combined 2-6. These decks are keeping us down to a certain degree, and in my video that's coming out next, and also at the end of the Chris Rock Donation League video, we did talk about how some certain cards like Collector Oof and Vraska Golgari Queen are very good when they are good, but against a deck like these Eldrazi decks, they just kind of go over the top of things like that. Things like Abrupt Decay, even sometimes things like Fatal Push to some degree in Inquisition. So we're on the lookout for other tech. I will be trying Liliana's Triumph more going forward. That's kind of my best solution, We could maybe play a second Maelstrom Pulse as well, but we are pretty crowded at the 3-drop slot. So that's a problematic matchup on paper, and my own results have borne that out. So like I said at the beginning, guys, if we want to use this to generate discussion, any insights you have on these Eldrazi matchups, any spicy hidden tech that you're using, we would love to hear about it. Here's another data point to highlight. In the Rock Mirror, I am 4-0 since Horizons debuted, and oh, by the way, just to continue explaining my methodology, I am only including lists that I play are matches that I play in leagues online with my own deck. So if I manage to make it to a paper tournament, those results don't go on here. If I'm playing a donation league, whether it be Jund or Sultai or even another person's rock list, I don't include that on here. This is all purely my own lists. And yeah, so anyway, the rock mirror, this is my thing, it's what I do. I play rock, so I should be winning the majority of these, but you know how they can come down to top decks, right? So it does feel good to 4-0 there. And another data point to highlight is, of course, Hogaak Vine. So this is by far the biggest, the largest data set we have. 10 of my first 100 matches were against Hogaak Vine, 10% of my meta that I faced, and we're splitting the difference 5-5. And in my estimation, that's about right. And it might even be a little bit better than that for a couple reasons. Number one, some of these matches came before Bridge from Below got banned. So it was definitely tougher for us to beat by far when they still had Bridge and Altar of Dementia in the deck. No question about that in my view. And the second point here is that I am not actively warping my deck to, even though Hogaak's top of the meta, I'm not playing Leylines of the Void. I'm not extremely loaded down with Graveyard Hate. I just kind of have an above average amount of Graveyard Hate. And that's sufficient to be 50-50 against the Hogaak Vine deck. So that's good enough for me. Granted, a lot of the wins are very, very narrow. We barely stabilize with the scoos, but that's the type of game we like to play, right? We like to live on the thin margins and the fine margins and nickel and dime our way to victory. So that's a useful data point. Again, let me know what happens in your matches with the Hogaak deck, but that's where we're at. Another data point before I forget, we'll start down here. So as many of you may remember, I have decided to quote-unquote punt the blue-white control matchup. But what I mean by that is that we're simply not taking it into account when we construct our 75. Obviously, we're still going to try to win. I have a full video on this if you want the full breakdown of this theory. But the idea is that the blue-white control hate cards are very low return on investment. Most of the times that we're winning with our core plan anyway, and or sideboard cards like Fulminator Mage that will already be in our 75. We don't justify their inclusion because of blue-white control. So how has this panned out for me? Well, remember that theory applies to all the control decks in general. So while my 2-4 record against blue-white control is not great, if we scroll back up, we are actually 3-0 against blue-white-red control, against Jeskai control for a combined 3-4, and our one meeting against Grixis went in our favor as well. So if we factor all that in, 6-4 against the real control decks, the blue-based, like, capital C control decks, without tagging whatsoever toward them, and all of them being matchups that should be unfavorable for us on paper, I'm extremely happy with that. I'm extremely happy with a 60% win rate against the blue control decks of the format. And, lately I just haven't been seeing them whatsoever. So that's a data point I wish to highlight. So far, so good as far as that is concerned. And again, we've got a lot of 1-1s and 1-0s and 0-1s. Like, we just can't glean much from these, right? Like, let's take a quick look here at the non-Eldrazi Tron decks. We've got 3-1 against Green Tron and 1-0 against Blue Tron. That's awesome. This is the big mana archetype is a big part of what has kept us down lately in the recent past, but the Field of Ruin, Fulminator Mage, Surgical Extraction package goes a really long way against Tron decks. If you're on Collector Roof, that card's obviously very, very good here as well. And here I am also, speaking of big mana, 2-0 against Titan Shift. I think that's more lucky than anything. I think both of my wins I did play well, but you definitely need a good dose of luck to beat Titan Shift, and we will get that as well. So the big mana matchup is looking way better here in this limited sample size than I think it actually is, but we'll certainly take it. And then another couple data points of note. Vizier combo 3-1 and Blue-White Spirits 3-0. Here's an example of the meta actually trending a little bit out of our favor, because all of these matches were played before Jund settled into the meta, and while Bridge from Below was still legal. So, I don't necessarily know what the story with Spirits is, but with Vizier combo, I know that a big part of the reason it was seeing so much play is because it could race the Hogaak Vine deck, and now that Hogaak Vine is not as unbeatable through interaction, you don't just need to race it, and now that Jund is back on the rise, that's pushed Vizier combo down in the meta. So we are seeing some of my success here came as a result of the meta that's no longer quite as favorable to us as it once was. I'm also seeing a couple duplicate listings here of Neo Brand. I'll need to go through and edit this before we do the next take. But yeah, so the overall win rate is 66%. It is 66 wins, 34 losses, and I'm just incredibly happy with that. Can't tell you how happy I am with that. And in these 20 leagues, these 100 matches, I only had one negative result. I had a lone 2-3, and that is just a ridiculous amount of consistency. I've never had such a consistently positive run in my entire life. Probably never will again. Magic is a high variance game. It's really, really unusual to just keep repeatedly going positive 19 out of 20 times. We did also only 5-0 once and a lower amount of 4-1s than I'm perhaps used to. So this was just 100 matches that were very, very heavy on the 3-2s, but that's positivity. That's a really good floor, and that's cashing just about every single league. So it's funny that that's the kind of defining point of this opening cluster of games, though, because I am a few leagues ahead of this in terms of what I've actually played. And my 21st league, I went negative again. I 2-3'd again, so it's not like that'll last forever. And I would have to get, 19 straight positive leagues to replicate that. So in other words, we can't depend on this consistency forever, but hopefully we are going to increase the win rate in a couple of key matches. Maybe bring up these Eldrazi numbers a little bit. That would be really, really nice. Maybe continue to do fine, maybe even a little bit better than 50-50 against Hogaak Vine. Again, some of these matches came before Bridge from Below was banned, where it was a lot tougher for us. I'd like to improve this humans win rate as well. Again, small sample size, but I think this is more like a 50-50, maybe even rising to slightly favored for us, given a build like mine with 4 Plague Engineers. So, let me know, as always, my friends, what your results are looking like, and that is what my first 100 league matches is going to show us. All right, my friends, so that was the data that I've been promising you. I expect it will become more and more useful over time. I don't want to belabor the point early on, so, we didn't talk about the ones where there's only 1 or 2 matches in there. But over the course of time, the idea is that we'll get accumulated data for every major matchup in Modern. And given how closely I try to stick to my list and how I don't really make tweaks willy-nilly, especially because I'm not including the donation leagues here in this data, I think we'll have, some pretty solid data to work with overall. Let me know what you think about the presentation. The Pro Tools, as I said, isn't perfect for our purposes, but, I started messing around with Google Sheets, and that just looked like a way uglier way to present things, frankly. So if you have any other ideas for how to present the data, let me know. But for now, that was a good way to start it off. And, of course, I hope to generate some matchup-specific discussion with some of those data points. So if you have anything you'd like to share about any of the matchups I mentioned, or even one that you just saw on there and you want to talk about, that's what the comment section for, guys. So let it rip, and thank you so much for watching. I always appreciate the views, the subs, and of course the Patreon supporters above all. Stay tuned to the channel, because in just a day or two, we've got another Rock gameplay video dropping, and after that, it's Donation League time again, and we're going to revisit Jund. Back to Junding him out. So, green-black for life. You gotta love it. And as always, my friends, I look forward to hearing from you. Hope everybody out there has a wonderful day. I'll talk to you soon.